Hi everyone. Today I'm gonna be talking about the book Men Without Women by Haruki Murakami. It's this book, and I very much liked it because it's Murakami. I just love Murakami. I have read of him Tokyo Blues, Colorless Tsukuri Tasaki, 1984, and Men Without Women, the latest one that I have read of him. To be completely honest, I am still thinking about it if I would recommend this one as an introduction of Murakami, because it's not bad, but the thing is that it's only like 7 stories, and even though they are good and I enjoy them, I don't know if it's the best way to start reading Murakami. I could actually suggest to start with the forever popular one, Tokyo Blues. I think you can get a good taste of who is he as a writer. And yes, I know that is the one that most people have read of him, and I know it's very well received. So if you have never read him, that it's a good start. I could also say that if you're a middle-aged person, then Colorless Tsukuri Tasaki and his Years of Pilgrimage could also be a good book to start with him. And I said middle-aged because it's more for people that have been in the workforce for a couple of years. And so, I guess if you're too young, you might not fully get it. Of course you can read it, you can like it, but still it won't hit the same way. That's why I recommend it more for older people. But if you are very young and you have left the school and been in the workforce for a couple of years, then you can relate as well. Who knows? Well, I was gonna say that Murakami is an author that he writes more about emotions and how that shape the mindset of a person and how it impacts their daily life and their life as a whole. So if you are looking like for, I don't know, like for a very complex story that you will get the resolution of every single thing, then Murakami is not for you. And also if you are looking for a character development, like, I don't know, like a little bit crazy or whatever, then he's also not for you. He does have like character development. It's just like in a more subtle way. He's more he excels at describing subtleties of the person. And yes, that's the main reason why I like him. And but he, I don't know, I would still say like he also has like a magical realism in his books. Not like it's not a main thing, but it's there. So if you're also into magical realism, then Murakami can be the author for you. And if you have never read anything like that, then you should try it. And because another aspect that I very much enjoy of his books is that even though he can be depressing, very depressing at times, he still balances it with jokes and just very like well thought dialogues, or I don't know, he really knows where to introduce like a nice joke. And it's always appreciated when he does that. But I will start now talking about the book. Well, there are 7 stories in here. In general, I would say I didn't. I don't know. I enjoyed reading all of them. I wouldn't say any of them it's a bad story. But there is at least one that I was just like, this is just what, like, I don't know what is going on. Eventually I will talk about it. And there were, of course, a couple that I very much enjoyed and loved. But before actually I start going into, as in describing each of those stories, well, one is there are gonna be spoilers. However, I still don't think I would be ruining the story for you, or you wouldn't be ruining the story for yourself if you actually watch the video. because I do think Murakami, it doesn't really matter how much someone tells you about the book or describes it for you. You can only take full, like, as in the experience. You have to read it, like, it, because it really doesn't matter. Even if I give you all the details about the story, you won't feel close enough to the, I mean, it happens in general, but I would say especially with Murakami, you, like, you can fully experience the story and everything when you read it. Because then again, because he's not like a story guy, you know, that there is this crazy story and all these plots happen and then they develop and get resolved. As in, because it's not that, and because it's not just about like, oh yes, and then the character became good or became bad. Is that you really have to read it. So anyway, having said that, like, you might, I mean, I don't know. You decide. The first story is called Drive My Car. And in general, it's about an actor that is hiring well, that needs to hire a driver to take him to his work and then to his place and all that. And what happens is, as I think it's with most of the stories in the book, it's like a dialogue or like conversations that happen between the characters, in this case the actor and the driver. And in those conversations is where you're gonna get glimpses of wisdom or that emotion, or when you relate to the characters, to the situation and whatnot. So the women, the Drive My Car, it's also, well, I find it funny how it starts, because it's basically saying that women suck at driving, and the reason is because either they are very careful at driving, which means that they are extremely slow and they don't know how to change lanes, or they press the brake very heavily, and also the majority don't know how to drive a manual car, and he has a manual car. And on the other side are the women that are extremely reckless, which by trying to look different from the rest of the women that are very cautious and trying to show that they can drive, then they drive endangering people because they just drive too fast. And I mean, you know how people that don't know how to drive. I mean, whatever, you know, like they just cut into the lane and all those things. So when he is introduced to this driver, which is a woman, I mean, at the beginning he's a little nervous because he's like, I mean, I know it's a prejudice of mine, but if you say she's good, then okay, I'll try it. And she's actually an excellent driver. And that's actually like not even that relevant. It's just like how it starts. But I mean, I find it funny because I do think it's quite accurate. Not that women cannot drive, women can, just that it happens. So anyway, she's there and she starts taking him to the theater, because he's an actor for theater, and she's just doing her job. And she's not very talkative, but they do have some conversations And it also occurs because he doesn't have many friends, so she's like, why you don't have friends? And then he's like, do you have friends? And she's like, no, not any. So anyway, and they just start talking. His wife died, and she cheated on him several times because she was also an actress. Yes, I think he had his suspicions that she was cheating on him, but because they couldn't last that long, like most of the time, they could lasting the affair could only last while they were in working on the same movie. Then he couldn't care. He never confront her about this, and I don't think he necessarily regrets not confronting her. I mean, now obviously she's dead, so it doesn't matter. But it's more as in he would like to understand why she felt the need to go to other men. And one weird case was that there was this one guy who of course, she also cheated with him, with this other one, and he became close to him after she died, just to figure him out, to see what kind of person he is, and to see why she liked him. So so then he becomes close to him. Well, not super close, but maybe hanging out like once per week or something like that. And he kind of likes the guy, but he can also tell that he fell in love with her, and he was also very sad knowing that she passed away. But still, she never let him that close, because I believe she was kind of sick, and during those times she never allowed the guy, the affair, to come close to her, because she kind of respected to some extent the husband. And this is one of the conversations that he tells the driver. And with this, it comes one quote, which he says that it's like, knowledge was better than ignorance. However agonizing, it was necessary to confront the facts. Only through knowing could a person become strong. I mean, there is wisdom in it, no? Knowledge, of course, it's always good. The truth is always what matters, even if it hurts. It's better than living in a lie, and which is pretty much what Murakami said in a much better context with much better words. And then he also has this conversation with the driver, where he explains to her how much he likes to act and why he likes to act so much. And one of the reasons is because he likes to escape his person, not necessarily, I mean, maybe his reality as well, but his person, to put himself, or to fake that he is someone else, at least for some time, and then going back to who you are. And another quote here is like, whether you want to or not, but the place you return to is always slightly different from the place you left. I mean, I do think it's a little self-explanatory, but what I like is precisely that, like, even for small moments, and because also in these moments is where you can experience Murakami, because it's like, even to describe something simple as just describing why a person likes their job, but it's like, as an actor, after you portray someone completely different from you, or slightly different from you, it really doesn't matter. When you come back to yourself, even that just mindset, you're coming back to someone different, or the place which is different. And it's just by the fact that, because you have experienced someone else's perspective or point of view. Or at least that's how I interpreted it, and that's why I very much like the quote. And then, because the conversation is kind of like about the acting and about the wife. So, relationships. One part, I mean, this is not a direct quote, but I kind of liked it because he was saying that relationships between people in general, but more or particularly between men and women, on a general level, are quite pathetic. And I just thought it was funny. I mean, obviously because of all the how you have to navigate the entire relationship, because you don't know exactly where it's going, and then you just end up wherever you are. The challenge is to look inside your own heart as perceptively and seriously as you can, and to make peace with what you find there. If we hope to truly see another person, we have to start by looking within ourselves. And this, of course, could go to all kinds of relationships, not only romantic ones. And it's also because in this moment, then the driver, she gives a little bit of her backstory. And it's basically that she had a pretty not so great upbringing, but she just continues living, like, I mean, what else? And then she says, like, so then we're all actors. And he replies, like, yes, I think that's true, to a point anyway. And I believe that was the end of the book. I just like how from something so simple, like Murakami can give a life lesson. What I like is that he leaves you kind of thinking about it, not because of its complexity necessarily, but it's just like it's just how I don't know how something so simple can actually hit you. As in, not that you start crying or anything. It's just like, I don't know, like a light bulb moment, or like it's true, Yesterday is about three kids. I mean, like two boys and a girl. They are, I believe, they are already in college, at least two of them, and one is trying to get into college because he has failed his exam two times. He's allegedly studying for the third one in order to get into this specific university that he wants. But because he isn't passing the exam, he's depressed about it, but he's also not studying. And even his parents are kind of supporting him, in the meantime. But he's still not studying. And he feels very sorry about himself. He even goes to therapy to talk about stuff. I mean, he's depressed for several reasons, not just because he isn't passing that exam, but anyway. And the story is about him and a friend of him, which is a male friend, and his kind of girlfriend. The girlfriend is already in college. The friend, honestly, I don't remember. But the point is, he is talking to the friend about the girlfriend, because I believe they don't see each other that often, because she is studying in another prefecture. But they still obviously keep in touch and everything, because allegedly they are a couple. And so I don't know why, but anyway, he's talking to the friend about the relationship and how she deserves better than someone that is not even going to college and not knowing anything about life and where he's at and all that. He suggests his friend to date her, also because because he's just weird. Like he's like, I don't want her to cheat on me. I know she deserves better, but I'm still with her. Like whatever. The point, and he's even like, maybe she can go out with you, and maybe you two can have something, no? So he's a very messed up guy, at least in my opinion. And yeah, so the friend, even though he also thinks it's weird, it's just like, but it's your girlfriend. He accepts it because, of course. And the girl, eventually, he brings them together, as in the three of them go out to a cafe or something, and he tells the idea to both of them, like, maybe you two should actually go on a date. And the girl is just like, are you serious? And he's like, yes, maybe you two can connect. He's a good guy. And she's like, okay. So then she gave him the phone number, and then they go out on a date. Very weird, if you ask me. But during the date, they only talk a little bit about one another, and most of the time they are talking about the guy. They are worried about this guy, you know, like he's just super sad and he is going nowhere. And then there are a couple of nice quotes or moments in the conversation. And one is like, the way surviving hard winters make a tree grow stronger. The growth rings inside it tighter. And then the other one is like, I agree that people need that sort of period in their lives. It's even better if they know when it will end. And then they proceed talking, and he's like, if you don't know what you're looking for, it's not easy to look for it. And that particular quote and phrase, it's one of the highlight moments in the story, at least for me, because I mean it's quite accurate. Like one of the best ways to, I mean, I don't know if to come out of depression, but at least like to have a purpose in life or something, is like to know what you want, so that at least you can aim at something. And otherwise you're aimless, and it's easier to fall on depressing thoughts. Like, I mean, I know it's very complicated, the whole thing of depression, but I think for this story. And then they grow old, and they meet again by chance, the friend and the now ex-girlfriend, but the depressed guy is not, they don't meet him again. And they talk again about him, because the friend, he just stopped meeting him, and he completely lost contact. But she said that she does still have contact with him every once in a while, where he sends her a couple of postcards or something, like keeping her up to date in a very general way. And she says that that he never went into the college, and that now he's like a sushi chef in the United States, but that he's kind of moving around. And then the friend says, I hope he's happy. If it's too much to ask that he's happy, I hope at least that today he has health and all his needs met, for no one knows what kind of dreams tomorrow will bring. And that was the end of the story. I actually thought that was a really, it's when I liked the story, because it was like they kind of cared still about the friend, and they at least the friend kind of understood that he was like in a weird mental state, and but he still wished him well, you know, even if they couldn't talk anymore. It's just like one of the ways Murakami can portray really well how some relationships just kind of fall apart, but they are, as in, they still wish them well, even when they are no longer in contact, and they might never be in contact again. But it's, again, it's one of those subtle moments which are very nice to read. And because of that, I liked it. I also like again that there are like glimpses of wisdom and of lessons, or there are I don't know. It's like there are glimpses of some of empathy for him, for the depressed guy, not knowing what to do. As in, because at the end of the day, of course, he can only help himself, but they are still kind of there for him in a weird way. Because again, the entire story for me is just too weird. It's just like, who does that? Like, why would someone do that? Like, set them up, like the friend with the girlfriend and all that messy part. But again, the insight of the characters and how they're seeing the situation, especially the depressed guy situation, is what it makes it like a really good story, at least for me. As in, it's just weird, you know, like I don't like it, but I don't. As in, I like the insight, but I don't like the story. The next story is called An Independent Organ, and I believe that it is my favorite story of them all. It is about the superficiality that some people live in, and also how a guy falls in love for the first time, like when he's like maybe not super old, but he's like I believe he's in his 50s, and most of the story it's gonna be a conversation between him and a writer. They're not necessarily close friends, but they're well acquainted and they meet every once in a while. And how Murakami starts this story, I also find it funny because he's like throwing shade a little bit to these people, and it's just like there are people in the world who, thanks to a lack of intellectual acuity, live a life that is surprisingly artificial. I find it was just awesome how he starts. And then he proceeds to say, they are thoroughly convinced that they are perfectly guileless people who live honest lives devoid of ulterior motives or artifice. And when by some chance a special light shines on them, revealing how artificial and unreal the inner workings of their lives really are, circumstances can take a tragic, or in some cases, comic turn. And this is because the protagonist of this story, it's called Tokai, well, Dr. Tokai. And he's a very well plastic surgeon. He has his own company and it's going well. So he also earns a good amount of money. He has his apartment and he also has plenty of women to date. These women, I think some of them have been his patients, not all. And also, he of course he just dates them for a period of time, and eventually they get married with obviously someone else. And after that, the communication gets cut. But some of those women eventually, later on, they give him a call. And he's more than happy to welcome them back. And obviously now they are married and with children. Obviously some others, once they married, they never had contact with him again. But the point is also that he kind of dates around, you know, like sometimes even up to 5 different ones in a period of time. And because of this, he also has an assistant. Well, his assistant in his consultory, it's also his assistant for his personal life. So he makes sure, you know, that the dates don't bump into one another. Also that the husbands don't find out. And the assistant has done a really good job because it has never come to happen anything big. At most, I believe only one of the husbands had suspicions, but it didn't. So because of this, the assistant is kind of close to Dr. Tokai. Not close in the sense of friends, but because he is in charge of scheduling his entire life. So, and Dr. Tokai also has plenty of friends, and a good amount of them, they are married and with children. But he never envied them. It's like he couldn't bring himself to have children like that. His friends all insisted that having children was a wonderful thing, but he never could buy this sales pitch. They probably just wanted Tokai to shoulder the same burden they dragged around. They selfishly were convinced that everyone else in the world should be obliged to suffer the way they did. I really like this quote because, as in general, I do think people like to impose their own lifestyle onto others for whatever reasons. So it was just a nice way of saying this. And eventually, this Dr. Tokai falls in love with this woman. This woman is married and has children. But because he really likes her, because he really felt for her, he goes into an existential dilemma, asking like, "Who am I?" And this also happened because he was reading like a Nazi book that made him question his life. He was just like, "But what would happen if one day?" Because it was also about Auschwitz. So it's like, what happened if one day, out of nowhere, like someone strip away everything from me, and I just become a number? And he's telling this to the writer, like that this combination of his feelings for her and this book made him like completely question his life. And the writer replies, "My starting point was being a simple person with nothing, starting life as if stripped bare. Through chance, I happened to start writing and luckily was able to make a living at it. So I don't need to come up with some dramatic scenario like being thrown into Auschwitz," I told him, "to realize that I'm just a human being with no special qualities or skills." And then the doctor replied like, "This is a serious case. What might happen to him if his feelings for her grew even stronger?" And in this interaction, I found it funny because you can tell how he has been living this frivolous life because he never even had this thought or realization, like he's just a simple mortal and what comes with it. But it was like big events for him, and by big events, just this one woman completely threw him off of his life, like yes, his lifestyle and everything he has done until this point. And I just found it again funny how Murakami again throws this little shade on him, like, as in, it's just normal. And I also found it cute how this doctor, even though it was like, even it's also like quite questionable the kind of woman he's falling for, again because it's an affair. So eventually, how the story developed is with this woman stopped contacting this Dr. Tokai and also leaving her husband for another guy. So she was seeing 3 guys at the same time. And Dr. Tokai, when he found out this, he completely, lost hope, because she was lying. After that, there is a nice moment in the book, which I will be reading, because they are also mentioning that women lie and that maybe they have this independent organ that makes them lie. Yes, I know, men lie too, but, for the context of this story. And it's like, just as that woman likely lied to him with her independent organ, Dr. Tokai, in a somewhat different sense, used his independent organ to fall in love, a function beyond his will, With hindsight, it's easy for someone else to sadly shake his head and smugly criticize another's actions, but without the intervention of that kind of organ, the kind that elevates us to new heights, thrusts us down to the depths, throws our minds into chaos, reveals beautiful illusions, and sometimes even drives us to death, our lives could indeed be indifferent and brusque, or simply end up as a series of contrivances. And I very much love that quote, like crazy. Oh, because when after he finds out that this woman left for this other guy, he goes into deep depression. He completely stops going to work. He stops eating, and he kind of, I guess, commits a soft unaliving himself. And the only one that kind of notices this is the assistant, because I mean he was the one, like, well, first because he also stopped going to work, and because he started acting out of character and his schedule was weird. So he eventually goes to the apartment and he sees that he's completely the opposite of what he used to be, and that he's in a really bad state, like physically. Yeah, and even though he tries to help him a little bit with what he can, eventually Dr. Takai passes away. And the one that tells the writer about this event is the assistant. And after that, it's when the writer says this quote, and I just loved it. I really loved the entire story. I don't think I made it justice with what I have described, or even with this quote. As in, if you're not gonna read the entire book, read this story, because I mean, yes, it was just, obviously it turned to be a tragedy, but it was so nicely, it was so well written, and it was like, it had a lot of impact, because even when, for example, I didn't like the Dr. Tokai that much. I mean, yes, I disliked him. So, but anyway, even when I didn't like Dr. Tokai, I really felt for him, you know, like how much this affected him. I mean, to the point to reach that level. And how I'm thinking it right now, it's probably those are the dangers when you live such a superficial life, and then you come across someone or something, some event that completely change your view on your entire life up until that point. I guess it can be quite devastating, and for many reasons, as in this case also, it's like he completely lost any reason to continue living. Okay, what I liked about the story so much, it was not just the entire love story and how it impacted someone that hadn't experienced that, as in to genuinely experience that, but also it was how well written, it was beautiful. So probably that's why this is my favorite story. And now the next story is Scheherazade. Probably I mispronounced it. This is probably my least favorite story. I don't know how I feel about it, to be completely honest. But anyway, this story is about a man that he cannot go out from his apartment for whatever reason. Honestly, I don't know why. He doesn't explain it. And so the only contact he has with humanity is with this nurse. And she kind of takes, I don't even know how old is this man. I think he's also pretty old, and I don't know if he has a disease. whatever, this nurse goes, and she kind of organizes her place, or she goes like some, I think, with a book and then some groceries, and then she organizes the kitchen. So in other words, she's going because it's her job, but because why not, they end up having sex. And most of the times she's going, and she has a husband. um I believe that's all. And I don't know if she also has children. um but the sex is very impersonal, and if anything, the magic happens after it, because then it's when she starts telling him random stories. Honestly, for me, she needs a nurse more than him, because her stories are very weird. I don't know what the fuck. As in, I don't think I got this story, as in, at all. But I don't know, like in one of her stories, she says that in her previous life she was an animal in the sea. I don't even remember which one, and that she was just there. And then he I don't know, he follows her, as in, I guess just to continue or go along. And she's like, oh, but how did it feel, or how do you remember a previous life? And then she's like, oh yes, don't you remember previous lives? You know, as if it's something super casual. As in, but she's serious about it. And whatever, obviously she's not. And you will see why she's completely crazy. It's because apparently, eventually, she tells him one of the stories, and it's that when she was in high school, she would fall in love with a guy, but the guy didn't pay attention to her, as in at all whatsoever. But she stalked him to the point that she even break into his house a couple of times, and she could take random stuff like a stamp or a pencil, and then she could leave something, like she left a tampon, and then but hidden, and then just a couple of hair. And I'm just like, oh, who does this? And so probably that's why I didn't like him. I mean, even the guy is like, what the fuck, like, you didn't get caught? And she was like, no. And I'm actually also, because apparently these people, I mean, maybe Japan is that safe, I don't know, but because they could leave a copy of their key outside of their house, like probably, I don't know, under a carpet or under a pot or something. I mean, also this is a book, I mean, as in the times are like previous internet. Anyway, it's extremely weird. She enters, and but the mother of the guy eventually, like, because she's like super tidy, she finds out, or she has a suspicion that someone is breaking in, and then she removes that key from the outside, and then she stops stalking him, or at least that's what she tells this guy. And yes, I'm just like, I mean, that's why you don't leave your key outside your house. But obviously that's not the point of the story. Eventually she just says something like, well, it's a quote, and it's like, maybe everybody goes through a crazy period like that at one time or another. And I'm just like, no. Like, who does that? As in, I can understand you liking someone a lot, but not to the point of breaking into their house, like, what the F? Whatever, that's the story. And I will be reading something else because I liked Murakami. Then she says, like, anyway, I forgot all about him once I graduated. So quickly and easily, it was weird. What was it about him that had made the 17-year-old me fall so hard? Try as I might, I couldn't remember. Life is strange, isn't it? You can be totally entranced by the glow of something 1 minute, be willing to sacrifice everything to make it yours, but then a little time passes or your perspective changes a bit, and all of a sudden you're shocked at how faded it appears. What was I looking at, you wonder? So that's the story of my breaking and entering period. But what I do like, of course, is Murakami being Murakami. And it's saying, it's just like, sometimes you fall so hard for someone that you do crazy things. But once you let it rest, then everything goes back. I mean, or you go back to normal. Maybe it's a continuation of that independent organ that we just, that it was precisely the previous story. Just let it rest and you'll be fine. Yes, I still would argue again that this is not my favorite story. It's not a bad one, it's just a weird one, as in too weird for me. Kino is the story of a man whose job was something that I forgot. The point is that he wasn't at home much. And his wife cheated on him. And so he caught her in the act. And eventually they got divorced. And he just also quit his job and and opened a small bar in a corner in Japan. And he's just like, but when he finds out, he's just like, I think he just kind of closes the door. I mean, what else do you do? No, I mean, maybe you can fight them in that precise moment. But he takes it kind of like whatever, you know. He's just like whatever. Let's just get the divorce and bye. But he just acts, I guess, as calm as a person in that situation could act, and he doesn't make a big deal, you know. He's just like, let's just go on each on our own way, and they didn't have children, so everything is fine. But it took him some time to find out about this, and well, he's thinking about it is like, it's because he wasn't good on picking up signs. And actually, I mean, the only reason he found out is because he was supposed to go back to his apartment one day later. Among human emotions, nothing was worse than jealousy and pride, and Kino had had a number of awful experiences because of one or the other. It struck him at times that there was something about him that stirred up the dark side in other people. Which obviously is not his fault, you know, like if people are stupid, people are stupid. And well, he opens this bar, and there is this man that becomes a regular customer. He would just sit in a corner and read a book, and he would order a specific drink. Apart from this one man, there is a cat who he also thinks it's of good luck. As in, the cat comes and goes, but he's just like, okay. And actually, there weren't any clients because he didn't promote it. But once the cat started going to that bar, then people also started showing up. Two guys then arrive at the bar. I don't remember very well the turn of events, but anyway, these two guys starting a commotion at the bar, and Kino tries to stop it, but then it looked like they wanted him to get involved in that in the fight because they were pretty shady. Like they took their own drink, but they asked him if they could drink whatever they were bringing, and he said yes. But then they started getting louder, and I think they broke a cup. I'm not sure. The point is that he has to enter, and then they kind of wanted that, so they are trying to intimidate him, and he's just like, can you please not? And then this other guy, the guy that kept going into a corner to read a book, he stands up and intervenes to the other two guys, and he's just like, let's just bring this entire business outside, and then he gets rid of them. How exactly, I don't know. He doesn't explain it. However, if you want to know, as a random curiosity. If you have read 1984, two of the guys that appeared in 1984, which is, I mean, you will know if you have read it, the ponytail and the other guy, those two are at the bar. And those two are the ones that actually start the fight, I guess. This is a random thing. It doesn't affect absolutely anything. Not 1984, not this book. Anyway, he gets rid of them, and after that, the cat stops going into the bar. And after that, Kino, finds or encounters a couple of snakes outside in a tree in front of the bar, and he was like, three is too many of them to be a coincidence. Obviously, this is like a weird, mysterious suspense, because it's just like something had to do with these guys that are trying to intimidate him or whatever, or at least that's what I started thinking. I was just like, oh my god. But obviously, the story is not about that. So, so nothing of that gets resolved. I guess it's a metaphor. He told his aunt about these snakes, and then she says that, well, but snakes are smart creatures. They often help guide people. But when a snake leads you, you don't know whether it's taking you on a good direction or a bad one. In most cases, it's a combination of good and evil. It's ambiguous. And then she continued saying that you're not the type who would willingly do something wrong. But there are times in this world when it's not enough just not do the wrong thing. Some people use the blank space as a kind of loophole. And Kino also started thinking like, but what I didn't do, or like what the fuck? And he kept thinking about that, but he couldn't remember any of it. But he kept going into that conversation, I guess, with the aunt, no? Which eventually will be, I mean, there will be like a reference to it. And while that was happening, eventually the ex-wife, goes and visits him at that bar, and he thinks like the ambiguous ambiguity. And they have a conversation, and the wife is like, you were hurt a little, weren't you? And Kino admitted to himself, like, when I should have felt real pain, I stifled it. I didn't want to take it on, so I avoided facing up to it. And I mean, obviously, that conversation, it's when I am just like, you really have to read it. Because it really doesn't matter how much I say this, it's just something that you just have to experience it. But because I was like, I mean, the audacity of this wife, me all angry on Kino's behalf. Because I was just like, bitch, just leave him alone, like, it's just like, why do you have to poke into the wound? But anyway, the point of this is because I believe it was to finish signing the divorce, or I don't know, and she also, I mean, I don't know if she kind of wanted a reaction from him, since he didn't give anything when he caught them. It's just like, just shut up. But eventually, the point is that eventually Kino has to leave the bar, or like he has to close the bar temporarily, because the other guy tells him, here comes the magical realism that I will not be explaining, and he's just in this hotel room, just thinking about it, he's just like, but I do need to have a contact with the world. Okay, what I like is just like, it's this moment for him to actually think about everything that has happened from the moment he divorced to where he's now. And by having this time for him and being, just far away from everything and everyone, then he says, like, yes, I am hurt very, very deeply. He said this to himself. And it's one of those it's one of the moment in the story which are like he just needed to give himself that time to actually feel it, because I guess he just kept going, like a zombie or something. um because yes, he was just pushing all of his emotions out. And again, it's just one of those moments where it's very mature of Murakami to write it in a not, I mean, because of the magical realism and all these other random parts that happen. It's just like in a not so straightforward way, but it's just like, it's just you are how you behave at times, because you refuse, or well, because the character refuses to see what is happening in his inside world. It's just that it's just like a bunch of things happen in his stories that for a good amount of the pages you're like, what? Or you're just like, okay, where is he gonna go, what is going on, and then boom, he hits you with the line which is all about, I think, it's just like he's just describing the inner world of someone, and obviously, but without describing it explicitly. I think, and he thought this, it's just like how he acted, because he has all of this inside of him. It's just Murakami. Anyway, the next one is Samsa in Love. I have not read Kafka, but apparently Samsa is the character. I don't know. Whatever, Samsa. I didn't know Samsa until this story. So this is just like the summary of the story. There might be more behind it, but the next story is Samsa in Love. And this story, it starts a little bit weird. Very much weird, a little bit scary, to be honest. I mean, at least for me. Actually, one of the things that happens to me, for some reason, I don't know why. I mean, I don't know why, is that horror movies or scary movies, I can't care less about them, because I don't find them scary. Most of the time, I find them annoying. Obviously, there are good ones, a couple of good ones, and those ones I enjoy. But I would say, I think in general, that genre, I don't like it, because I'm just like, as in, I just, whatever, as in, at best there are jump scares, but I don't find them necessarily scary. However, when I read a book that is scary or mildly scary, I get really, as in, I do feel it. I do get the fear. Samsa in Love is not a scary movie, or a scary book, or scary story is not like that. But how it starts and how he starts describing it, I was just like, what? But as in, what in a I'm scared. Yes. But anyway, because how it starts is with Samsa being naked in a room that has like it's just a mattress. It doesn't have anything. It's just a mattress. He's there, and the window has these wooden planks, or so he can only kind of look outside. But he's just like, but this is for someone either to not go out or to not enter. And then he says that because it's kind of he's coming out from his metamorphosis. Apparently a very literal metamorphosis, because he doesn't know how to walk. He's just like, what is this body? As in, why I couldn't be like shrimp or something. Honestly, I don't know if he said shrimp, but he mentioned something like from the sea. And like as in, this is just disgusting. Like, why do I have to walk in two legs? And then he has to he's hungry, and then he has to go downstairs, but he doesn't know how to go downstairs. And I mean, I'm just mentioning this because it's just like how he describes, as in how Murakami describes all this. For me, it was scary. It's just like, what is this? it's a normal reaction or not. But I was just like, as in, I thought he just went into a huge, as in a complete different story and different way of approaching it, from all that I know of him. And then he goes down, and then there is food in the table, and there are other rooms, but the food in the table looks like the family just finished preparing it, and he just eats everything, but in a very savage way. Like he leaves everything like completely disorganized. And I mean, even remembering, it's just like, oh my god, like. But I do think obviously it was on purpose to make this atmosphere so heavy. And eventually he also look outside, and he sees people wearing clothes. So he's just like, now I have to find clothes. I have to figure out how to kind of blend in, like, as in, what is a cloth? So he goes upstairs again, like, and with a lot of effort. Because then again, he just... And for me, I mean, at least what I was thinking on and during all this time, I was like, he ate the family. I was so convinced, and I mean, at this point, it could be, but I was just like, he's a monster. I mean, I guess we will never know. So eventually, someone knocks at the door, and it's this random hunchback girl that is there to fix a lock. And sometimes just like, I don't know which lock doesn't work. And then she's just like, but then he's just like, but maybe it's upstairs, in the last room, which is the room where he came out. And she's like, okay, let's go and check it out, no? So she goes, and then she checks the lock, and she's like, yes, this is not working. I don't know how this happened, because whatever destroyed this lock, it was from the inside. But I think he also described it in a very specific, weird way, like supernatural, or I don't know. And I was just like, what is going on? So it's pretty irrelevant, but I think me. And then she asks Samsa, is like, do you happen to know where is the key of the lock? And Samsa is like, I have no idea. And then this woman says, Gregor Samsa, sometimes you make me want to die. And I thought, I mean, it's very funny, because obviously she's doing her job, but he is not making it easier for her. Okay, because apparently there is a war outside. As in, at least there are tanks, and there are like blockages, I don't know. And so she had to just go there to fix a lock. And she's like, as in, I'm risking my life by being here, your family should be here. They shouldn't go out because people disappear and all that. I mean, because he didn't fully explain it, but it appears that they're in the middle of a war zone or something similar. And then she's just like, isn't it like funny, curious that in the middle of these times people want to fix a lock? Which comes this quote of, maybe working on the little things as dutifully and honestly as we can is how we stay sane when the world is falling apart. Awesome quote. And then Samsa falls in love with this woman. Because I think it's because she reminds him of a shrimp. Because she's a hunchback. And of course there are sexual connotations. I mean, weird shit happens. I think nothing happens between the two of them, but he's just like, whatever. Because the only clothes he was able to put himself, it was like a coat, a long coat. So yes, I think you can tell he's into her. If you catch my drift. So she confronts him, because she's like, what the hell is going on here? Like, do you think because I'm a hunchback you can do whatever? And then he's just like, no, it's not like that at all. As in, because he has just become a human, right? So he doesn't know, but it's also like in his 30s or something like that, and he's just like, no, I just find you charming, and your movements, because she has this weird movement that she does because her bra kind of falls, and she's just like, is this guy weird? I mean, actually, she from the very beginning, she's hilarious because she's like, because he doesn't know anything, and I think he's acting. I mean, just like a someone that just became a human, but obviously she doesn't know that, and she's just like, is he bad in his head? So she. That's why, I mean, it's also funny, this story, because all the time she's being extremely like sarcastic and hostile towards him in a funny way. And when he kind of fell in love with her and kind of told her that he's interesting, she's just like, I mean, as in, you might be like fine looking, but I'm as in, and a little bit bad in your head, but I don't think this will work because we're from different families and I'm a hunchback and whatnot, and also because probably you have hidden intentions, you know, like you might have like a fetish or something. And he's just like, no, it's not like that. I just want to talk with you about locks and about random stuff and tanks, which he doesn't know what a tank is. And she's just like, okay, whatever. So then before she leaves, she says to him, if you think of someone enough, you're sure to meet them again. And when she's leaving and he's seeing her at the distance through the window, he's just like, okay, the world is waiting for me to learn. But I mean, I didn't try to quote or anything, but I believe it wasn't just of him being a human, but of he learned how to love. So it was a really nice story. I think it started very weird, very horrible. I was scared, but it was at the same time, it was funny and weirdly cute. So yes, it just, once again, the magic of Murakami. And for the last story, it's Men Without Women, where this Murakami explains the story or the book, and it's how men without women live. I think how also their mindset, their emotions, feelings, and how easy it is to become men without women. And it's a story of this guy who is married, but he receives a phone call in the middle of the night that one of his exes unalived herself, and then he's just there wondering, and it's just like, well, that's, I think it can affect him also because he remembers how he really wanted her and he fell for her, but they only kind of dated for a couple of 2 years or something like that, and it was more like all of a sudden she wasn't there anymore, you know. They were 14 years old, and she was just like, I think he kind of wanted it to work out with her, but because of life, it wasn't possible, and he only found out in this horrible way that it was proper gone. And then there is this quote that is like, I turned back and she had disappeared. There 1 minute, gone the next. My despair was deeper than any ocean that might have crossed, deeper than any sea where giant squid and sea dragons swam. So after that, he goes to a park where there is a statue of a unicorn. And this is also kind of relevant because Murakami makes this observation about unicorns, and he, well, with the character, no? The character is like, well, I have never seen a unicorn with another unicorn, you know? As in, I have never seen a couple of unicorns. And the unicorn, most likely, it's a male. So maybe it should be the symbol of Men Without Women. Only men without women can comprehend how painful, how heartbreaking it is to become one. It's easy to become men without women. You love a woman deeply, and then she goes off somewhere. Loneliness seeps deep down inside your body. And I will continue reading more of him. Because this one is just, I don't know, maybe more personal. As in, not for me, but because because it explains the book at a more deeper level, and probably that's why I'm finding it a little more difficult to describe it. But it's just this man describing just how everything that he kind of felt about this woman, and when he lost her, even when he is with another woman. And then, okay, so I will finish with this quote. You might meet a new woman, but no matter how wonderful she may be, actually, the more wonderful she is, the more this holds true. From the instant you meet, you start thinking about losing her. For Men Without Women, the world is a vast, poignant mix, very much the far side of the moon. Beautiful. It's just a really good book. I just loved it. I just love not every story, but I love the message, the topic, the different ways in which different men experience this, not necessarily solitude, but this painful feeling. It's just very well done. It's Murakami. I mean, what one should expect of him. It's a book that describes relationships or the loss of a relationship, and in different ways, weird ways, more normal. You have it all in this book. So I would recommend it. I would very much recommend him. I mean, I really recommend Murakami. But this book, it's just like, I very much like those authors, which obviously there are a good amount of them, which leave you thinking. Not to be depressed, it's just like, So how I would rate them is Independent Organ, my favorite one. After that, Samsa in Love. Then Drive My Car. Then Men Without Women. Then Kino. Then Yesterday. And then Scheherazade. That's how I would rate them. But again, in general, I very much enjoyed reading about all of them. I love them. I love Murakami. I don't know. I just loved it. I recommend it. I hope you read it. And if you have read it, you can let me know. Anyway, thank you for listening.